Welcome to my channel. Try to hear the latest story.
My golden brother stole my business idea and patented it. My parents took his side. I let him launch, wait for him to spend all his life savings on manufacturing, then hit him with a prior art lawsuit I prepared 2 years ago. He is bankrupt, and I bought the inventory for pennies. Golden child brother stole my router bit design that I spent 8 months developing, patented it with our parents' full support and funding. I documented everything from day one, let him manufacture $75,000 worth of inventory with his life savings, then hit him with an airtight prior art lawsuit. His patent got revoked, he went bankrupt, and I bought all his inventory for $1,000. Sold it myself, made $40,000 profit, got a YouTube video exposing him that went viral, and he's now living in our parents' basement with a ruined reputation trying to pay off debts. Don't steal from people who keep receipts. So I'm 32 now, and my younger brother Jake is 28. For context, Jake has been the golden child since the day he was born. I'm talking about the kind of favoritism that makes strangers uncomfortable at family gatherings. Every single thing this kid did was met with standing ovations from our parents, while I could cure cancer and get a pat on the back with a side of criticism about how I could have done it faster. I need you to understand just how deep this favoritism ran, because it sets up everything that happened later. When Jake was in elementary school and got a C on a spelling test, my parents bought him ice cream and told him he tried his best. When I got an A- on a math test in the same grade, I got a lecture about how I needed to focus more because a minus wasn't good enough. Not kidding. That actually happened. The gift disparity was wild too. One Christmas when I was 14 and Jake was 10, I got a $30 gift card to a sporting goods store and a pair of socks. Jake got a new gaming console, 4 games, and a TV for his room. My parents' explanation? Jake's younger, so Christmas is more magical for him. Right, because being 14 means you don't enjoy getting actual presents anymore. Growing up, I was the responsible one. Got good grades without being asked, worked part-time jobs since I was 16, paid for my own car, helped with household expenses. I had this beat-up Honda Civic that I bought myself with money I'd saved from working at a grocery store for 2 years. Thing had 180,000 miles on it and smelled like old French fries, but it was mine. Jake? This dude coasted through life on charm and our parents' endless wallet. Failed his junior year of high school and had to repeat it? No problem. Just a minor setback for their precious boy. They hired him a private tutor at $50 an hour, 3 times a week, for an entire school year. Meanwhile, when I got a B+ in AP chemistry, I got a 20-minute lecture about not applying myself and how I was wasting my potential. But here's my favorite example of the double standard. When I was 17, I wanted to take this girl I liked to prom. The ticket was $75 and I needed to rent a tux. I asked my parents if they'd help me out with maybe half the cost. They said no, told me if prom was important to me, I should have saved up for it. So I worked extra shifts and scraped together the money myself. 2 years later, Jake's going to his junior prom. Not only do my parents pay for everything, including the tux rental and the tickets, they also give him $200 for a limo and dinner. When I pointed out the difference in how they treated us, my dad actually said, "Well, you're more independent. Jake needs more support." Yeah, because you never gave him a reason to be independent. The double standards were so blatant it was almost comical. When I was 18 and wanted to go on a school trip to Washington, D.C., I had to save up for 6 months and my parents still made me pay for half. When Jake wanted to go to Europe with his buddies at 19, they just handed over $3,000 like it was nothing. Their excuse? Jake's going through a tough time and needs this. The tough time? His girlfriend of 2 months broke up with him. I went to a state university on partial scholarship and worked 30 hours a week to cover the rest. Had to take out student loans too, which I've been paying off ever since. My schedule was brutal. Classes from 8 a.m. to 3 p.m., work from 4 p.m. to 10 p.m. at a call center, then homework until midnight. Weekends were more work and studying. I didn't party or have much social life, just grounded out because nobody was going to hand me anything. Graduated with a degree in mechanical engineering with a 3.7 GPA, landed a decent job at an aerospace company, and moved out at 23. Paid off my student loans in 5 years by living cheap. Jake went to a private college at $45,000 a year. My parents paid for all of it. Tuition, room, board, spending money. Jake never worked during college, not once. He changed his major 4 times and took 6 years to graduate with a business degree. That's $270,000 my parents spent on his extended vacation while I got maybe $15,000 total in help during my 4 years. But here's where the story really starts, and where Jake's golden child status finally came back to bite him in a spectacular way. About 5 years ago, I was working in product development at the aerospace company and started tinkering with something in my garage during evenings and weekends. See, I'm really into woodworking as a hobby. Started when I was a teenager and needed furniture for my first apartment, but couldn't afford to buy anything decent. Taught myself from YouTube videos and old woodworking books I got from the library. Over the years, I'd built up a pretty nice workshop in my garage. Nothing fancy, mostly secondhand tools I'd refurbished myself, a decent table saw I'd saved up for, a router table I built from scratch, stuff like that. Woodworking was my therapy after long days dealing with corporate office politics and engineering bureaucracy. That's when I noticed this massive gap in the market for a specific type of router attachment. Without getting too technical for the non-woodworkers reading this, router bits are these cutting tools that spin at super high speeds to shape wood. Different bits create different profiles: edge treatments, grooves, decorative moldings, joinery cuts, all kinds of stuff. But there were two big problems with how router bits worked. First, most bits create this thing called tear out on certain wood types, especially when you're cutting across the grain. Tear out is when the wood splinters or chips out instead of cutting clean. It ruins pieces and wastes material and time. Second, switching between different cutting profiles was a massive pain that could take several minutes of setup for each change. For hobbyists like me, it was annoying. For professional woodworkers who were switching bits multiple times per project, it was eating up hours of productive time every week. I'd talked to a few professional cabinet makers who told me they could lose 30 to 45 minutes a day just on bit changes and setup. Over a year, that's like 180 plus hours of wasted time. So I started sketching ideas for how to solve both problems at once. The initial concept came to me at like 2 a.m. one night when I couldn't sleep. I got up, went to my garage, and just started drawing. That first sketch was rough, but it had the core concept: a modular system where the cutting profiles could swap out in seconds without changing the base unit. I spent the next 8 months living and breathing this project. I'm talking obsessive levels of dedication. I'd work my normal 9 to 5 job, come home, eat something quick, and head straight to the garage until 11 p.m. or midnight. Weekends I'd spend 10 to 12 hours out there, testing and refining. The first prototype was a disaster. The locking mechanism I designed kept working loose from the vibration. Dangerous as heck. I scrapped it and started over with a completely different approach. Prototype number 2 was better, but the alignment was off. The bits would wobble slightly at high speeds, which defeats the entire purpose. Back to the drawing board. By prototype 7 or 8, I was getting somewhere. I'd figured out a locking mechanism that used a combination of mechanical pressure and geometry to keep everything solid even at 20,000 RPM. The key was this tapered collar system that would self-tighten under rotational force. The faster the bit spun, the tighter it locked in place. The real breakthrough came around month 5. I designed these cutting profiles that had built-in features to prevent tear-out. The geometry of the cutting edges was optimized based on wood fiber structure and cutting dynamics. I ran probably 200 test cuts on different wood species: oak, maple, cherry, walnut, pine, plywood, MDF, everything I could get my hands on. Documented every single cut with photos and notes. For the quick change mechanism, I went through dozens of iterations. The final design had this quick release collar that you could operate with one hand. Twist it 45 degrees. Pull out the old cutting profile, drop in the new one, twist back. 5 seconds, tops. Compare that to traditional bits where you'd need to remove the entire bit from the router, use wrenches to change it out, adjust the height, recalibrate everything. My system eliminated all of that. The self-aligning feature was another game changer. I designed the base unit with these precision ground locating surfaces that would automatically center and square up each cutting profile when you inserted it. Combined with the built-in depth stops, you could achieve consistent, repeatable results without constant measuring and adjustment. Basically, I'd created a system where even someone relatively new to woodworking could achieve professional-level results, while professionals could cut their setup time by 80% and get better cuts with zero tear-out. It was genuinely innovative. I spent about 8 months refining the design, built probably 30 different prototypes in my garage, testing different materials, different locking mechanisms, different tolerances. I kept detailed notes of everything: sketches, failed designs, material tests, measurements, dates, the works. I'm talking about 3 full engineering notebooks with dated entries, plus hundreds of photos and probably 50-plus videos of test cuts and assembly demonstrations. I documented everything because that's just how my brain works. I like having records. Plus, working in product development professionally had taught me the value of documentation. Every iteration got photographed from multiple angles. Every test cut got recorded with notes on the wood type, bit speed, feed rate, and results. Every design change got dated and explained. I even kept receipts for all the materials I bought. Aluminum stock for the base units, high-speed steel for the cutting profiles, specialized fasteners, precision bearings, everything. Each receipt was dated and filed. I didn't think I was building a legal case or anything. I just liked having organized records of my projects. Here's the thing, though. I was doing this purely as a hobby project at first. I thought maybe I'd patent it eventually, possibly try to license it to one of the big tool companies like DeWalt or Bosch, but I wasn't in any rush. I had a stable job with good pay and benefits, decent savings building up, and this was just my evenings and weekends thing. Something I did because I enjoyed the process of creating and problem solving. My parents knew I was working on something in my garage, but I didn't really talk about it much because they'd never shown much interest in my projects before. Why would this be any different? When I bought my house, my dad made exactly one comment about my workshop setup. Must be nice to have space for hobbies. That was it. No interest in what I was building or what I was working on. Jake, on the other hand, was bouncing between jobs at this point. He'd been finding himself for about 2 years after college. Worked as a barista for 3 months before quitting because his manager was toxic. She'd asked him to show up on time. Then did social media for a friend's startup selling overpriced protein powder that folded after 6 months. Then sold insurance for 6 weeks before deciding sales wasn't his passion. During this whole period, Jake would come over to my place regularly. We'd watch sports, order food, hang out. Despite everything, I didn't hate the guy. The favoritism wasn't his fault. He'd see my garage workshop and ask what I was building. As I got closer to a final design, I started showing him more. I'd explain the concept, walk him through the prototypes, discuss the market potential. Jake seemed genuinely interested, asked questions about manufacturing costs, sales strategies, patents. He wanted to know about the entire business side. I thought he was just being a supportive brother, finally showing interest in something productive. Looking back, he was gathering intelligence on how to steal it. One night about 4.5 years ago, Jake came over while I was in the garage. I had just finished my final prototype, the one I was planning to use for patent applications. This was it. Design locked in, all kinks worked out, test cuts perfect across every wood type. I was excited to show someone after working in isolation for 8 months. So I showed Jake everything, the whole mechanism, how it worked, every detail, materials and why I chose them, target market, manufacturing cost estimates, figured $30 per unit at scale, could retail for $120 to $150. I even showed him my development notebooks, all 3 of them, the dated entries, the progression from initial sketch to working prototype. Jake was enthusiastic, said how smart I was, how this was going to be huge. He asked if I needed help, offered to do market research. It felt good. My little brother was proud of me. Our parents never showed that kind of interest. We stayed up until 1 a.m. talking about business possibilities, marketing strategies, retail versus direct-to-consumer. I thought he was being supportive. 2 weeks later, I went on a work trip. 4 days in Phoenix for an aerospace industry conference. Boring stuff about supply chain optimization and new composite materials. Came back on a Sunday afternoon, exhausted from traveling, and stopped by my parents' house for our usual Sunday dinner. When I walked in, the vibe was weird immediately. My mom was bustling around the kitchen with this nervous, excited energy. My dad was grinning like he'd won the lottery. And Jake had this look on his face. Kind of excited, but also anxious, like he was about to tell everyone he got engaged or something. We sat down for dinner. Pot roast, which was usually my favorite, but I was too tired to care much about food. Made small talk about my trip, how the conference went, whether Phoenix was hot this time of year. Normal family dinner stuff. Then, halfway through the meal, my dad clears his throat in that deliberate way. That means he's about to make an announcement. So Jake has some big news to share. Some very exciting news. Jake gets this huge grin on his face. The kind of smile you see on people who just accomplished something major. He looks right at me and says, "I'm filing for a patent on a revolutionary new router bit system that I designed. I'm going into business for myself. Finally found my calling." I literally froze with a fork halfway to my mouth. Just stopped mid-motion like someone had hit pause on my life. I stared at him, and my brain took about 5 seconds to process what he'd just said. What router bit system? And then he started describing my design. Every single detail. The quick change mechanism with the twist lock collar, the self-aligning features with the precision ground locating surfaces, the built-in depth stops, the modular cutting profiles, the anti-tear out geometry, everything I'd spent 8 months developing, testing, and refining. He even used some of the exact same phrases I'd used when explaining it to him. Revolutionary modular system. Saves hours of setup time for professionals. Makes professional results achievable for hobbyists. My words coming out of his mouth, describing my invention that he was claiming as his own. I looked at my parents. They were beaming at him. Absolutely beaming. My mom had this proud mother look, eyes all shiny like she might cry happy tears. My dad was nodding along, grinning, clearly thrilled. I put my fork down very carefully, trying to keep my voice steady. Jake, that's my design. I showed you everything 2 weeks ago in my garage. The room went quiet for about 3 seconds. Nobody moved. Then my mom laughed. Actually laughed. It wasn't a little chuckle either. It was a full dismissive laugh. Oh, honey, don't be ridiculous. Don't be silly. Jake's been working on this for months. He wouldn't steal your little hobby project. Little. Hobby. Project. 8 months of work. 3 notebooks full of development. 30 prototypes. Hundreds of hours of my time. And she called it a little hobby project, like I'd been building model airplanes or something. Jake jumped in real quick before I could respond to my mom. Dude, I don't know what you're talking about. I've been developing this idea since last year. Maybe we just had similar thoughts? Great minds think alike and all that, right? I stared at him, tried to see any hint of guilt or shame in his face. Nothing. He looked completely sincere, like he actually believed his own lies. Or maybe he just convinced himself that somehow my idea became his idea through some mental gymnastics. I looked him dead in the eye. I have 3 notebooks full of design iterations going back 8 months. I have prototypes in my garage with dates marked on them. I have photos and videos time-stamped on my phone. I have receipts for materials bought specifically for this project. You saw all of this 2 weeks ago. You were in my garage. You held the final prototype in your hands. My dad cut in before Jake could respond. His voice had that stern tone he used when he'd already made up his mind about something. Now listen, we're not going to sit here and accuse your brother of theft. That's a very serious accusation. Jake showed us his designs months ago. He's been very excited about this business venture. We've been supporting him through the development process. That last part caught my attention. You've been supporting him? My mom nodded enthusiastically. Of course. We've been helping Jake research manufacturing processes, develop his business plan. He's been working on this in our garage for the past few months. That was a straight-up lie. A complete fabrication. Jake had never mentioned anything about router bits or tools or woodworking or manufacturing or any business idea before I showed him my project. But here were my parents, not only backing up his theft, but actively creating false history to support his lies. I turned back to Jake, kept my voice level. Show me your development notes then, your prototypes, your documentation from these months of work you claim you've been doing. He got defensive immediately, crossed his arms, leaned back in his chair. I don't have to prove anything to you. Just because you're jealous that I'm actually going to be successful with this, doesn't mean you can try to steal credit for my work. This is my design, my idea, my business. The audacity of that statement genuinely made me speechless for a moment. I just sat there, looking at him, processing the fact that he'd stolen my invention and now had the nerve to accuse me of trying to steal it from him. My mom reached over and patted Jake's hand sympathetically. We believe you, sweetheart. Don't let your brother's jealousy ruin your excitement. This is your moment. Jealousy? I looked at her. Mom, I'm not jealous. I'm telling you he stole my design. This isn't a similar idea. It's the exact same system I showed him 2 weeks ago in my garage, down to every specific detail. My dad's voice got harder. Either sit down and be happy for your brother, or leave. We're not going to entertain these baseless accusations for the rest of the evening. Jake has worked hard on this. The least you can do is be supportive. I looked at all 3 of them. Really looked at them. My brother who'd just stolen 8 months of my work and was lying about it without a shred of remorse. My parents who were choosing to believe his obvious lies over my documented truth. My parents who just created false memories about Jake working on this project for months to support their golden child's theft. And I realized something important in that moment. Something that completely changed my approach. I could fight this head on right now, and it would go nowhere. I could yell, bring in my notebooks tomorrow, show them all my evidence. They wouldn't care. They'd already chosen their side. They'd chosen it before I even walked in the door. They'd chosen it the day Jake was born. If I made a big scene now, Jake would know I was on to him. He'd adjust his strategy. Maybe he'd modify the design enough to claim it was different. Maybe he'd rush the patent filing before I could do anything. Maybe he'd get more creative with his lies, build a more elaborate cover story. But if I back down now, if I let him think he got away with it, then I could prepare. Document everything even more thoroughly. Build an actual legal case instead of a family argument. Let him commit fully to this theft. Let him invest time and money. Let him build his whole future on my stolen intellectual property. And then I could destroy him properly. Not with family drama, with legal consequences. So I made a choice that would pay off way better than any argument at a dinner table. I took a breath, unclenched my fists that I didn't realize I'd been clenching, picked up my fork and speared a piece of pot roast. You know what? You're right. I'm sorry, Jake. I guess I got confused. My project must be more different from yours than I thought. Congratulations on your patent filing. The relief in the room was immediate, physical. My mom's shoulders relaxed. My dad's stern expression melted into a smile. Jake looked almost surprised that I'd backed down so easily, but he recovered quick and gave me this magnanimous nod like he was being gracious in victory. Thanks, man. No hard feelings, right? I know you've been working on stuff in your garage too. Maybe we both just stumbled onto similar solutions to the same problem. It happens. I smiled at him, kept my voice friendly and interested. Yeah, totally. So tell me more about your business plans. When are you filing the patent? And just like that, dinner continued. Jake spent the next hour talking about his vision for the business while I asked questions and played the supportive older brother. I found out he was planning to file the patent application within the next 2 weeks. He'd already consulted with a patent attorney who'd helped him draft the application. He was using detailed drawings I'd shown him, specifications I'd developed, even the material choices I'd researched and tested. I found out he was planning to file the patent application within the next 2 weeks. He'd already talked to a patent attorney, was putting together the application with detailed drawings and specifications. He was planning to use our parents' garage to assemble initial inventory, then eventually move to a small manufacturing facility. He had big dreams about selling through major retailers, becoming the next big tool innovation company. My parents were fully bankrolling his startup. They'd already given him $15,000 to cover the patent attorney, initial prototype materials, and business formation costs. They were planning to invest another $30,000 once he got the patent filed to help with manufacturing setup and inventory. I listened to all of this very carefully, asked Jake about his timeline, his manufacturing plans, his target launch date. He ate up the attention, thought I was finally being a supportive older brother. That night, I went home and got to work. I gathered every single piece of documentation I had, every notebook, every sketch, every prototype, every photo, every video, every time-stamped file on my computer. Organized everything chronologically, made copies, backed it all up in 3 different places, including cloud storage. Then I contacted my own patent attorney. Not to file a patent, Jake was already doing that, and I wanted him to. I wanted to establish prior art. See, you can't patent something that someone else invented first, even if they didn't patent it themselves. My attorney and I put together a comprehensive prior art package. We documented everything, the entire development timeline, all my prototypes with dated photos, my design notebooks with dated entries, receipts for materials that correlated with specific design iterations. We had video evidence of working prototypes from months before Jake even knew the project existed. But we didn't file anything publicly yet. We just prepared everything, had it notarized, time-stamped it all, and sat on it. Locked and loaded, safety on, waiting. Because if I fought Jake's patent application right away, he'd just pivot, change some details, claim he improved on my design, drag this out forever with our parents throwing money at attorneys. But if I let him get the patent, let him think he won, let him invest everything into manufacturing and inventory, then hit him when he was completely committed with no way out, that would hurt so much more. So I watched and waited. Jake's patent application went through. Took about 18 months of back and forth with the patent office, but he eventually got it approved. Our parents threw him a celebration party at their house. Invited like 50 people. Had a cake made with an edible photo of the patent document on it. Posted all over Facebook about their inventor's son. I showed up with a bottle of sparkling cider, congratulated him, played the supportive brother perfectly. Nobody suspected a thing. Jake started manufacturing. He used the patent to get a small business loan for $50,000 on top of what our parents had given him. He'd already burned through their initial $45,000 on the patent process, attorneys, prototype tooling, and business setup. This new loan was for actual inventory. He found a machine shop about 40 miles outside the city that could produce the components. Negotiated a deal for 2,000 units worth of parts. Set up assembly in a rented warehouse space. 1,200 square feet for $1,800 a month. Hired 2 part-time workers at minimum wage to help with assembly and packaging. Designed packaging with his face on it. Created a whole brand identity. Built a website with e-commerce capabilities. Jake was going all in. Quit his latest job, some assistant manager position at a retail store where he'd been working for about 8 months. Told everyone he was going to be a full-time entrepreneur now. His social media bios all changed to founder and CEO of his router bit company. I watched his social media religiously. He posted everything, and I mean everything. Photos of the CNC machine at the shop cutting his components. Videos of the first test assemblies. Pictures of him and his 2 employees putting units together in the warehouse. Pallets of cardboard boxes being delivered for packaging. The finished products lined up on shelves. He was so proud. Posted these long captions about the journey of bringing his vision to life, how hard he'd worked to make this dream a reality, how grateful he was to our parents for believing in him. Tagged them in every single post. They ate it up, shared everything to their own profiles with comments like, "Our brilliant son," and "So proud of this young entrepreneur." He did an interview with the local news. Small segment on their local business spotlight feature. Talked about how he'd come up with the idea, how he'd spent months perfecting the design, how he was bringing manufacturing jobs back to the area. I recorded it, added it to my evidence folder. He started his marketing push about 2 months into manufacturing, ran Facebook and Instagram ads targeting woodworkers and DIY enthusiasts, sent free samples to about 20 YouTube channels that did tool reviews, reached out to hardware store buyers about carrying his product. The YouTube reviews started coming in. Most were positive. The product worked well. Of course it did. I'd spent 8 months making sure it worked. One reviewer with about 50,000 subscribers called it a game changer for anyone serious about woodworking. Jake shared that video probably 10 times across different platforms. He landed that trial order with a regional hardware chain, 200 units for 6 stores. They'd put them on shelves for 3 months to test customer interest. If they sold well, they'd place a bigger order. Jake posted about it like he'd just landed a deal with Home Depot. "Big things happening. My router system is going retail." Our parents shared that post too. My mom commented, "We always knew you were destined for greatness." I took a screenshot of that comment. Saved it. Jake got his first real sale about a week after launch. Some guy in Colorado ordered 2 units. Jake posted a photo of the shipping label with the caption, "First official customer. This is really happening." He framed a printout of that first order confirmation and hung it in his warehouse office. Over the next 2 months, he sold maybe 150 units total. Not exactly flying off the shelves, but enough to keep him encouraged. He was breaking even on his monthly warehouse rent and employee costs, but not making profit yet. Kept posting about how building a business takes time, how he was in it for the long haul, how success doesn't happen overnight. Meanwhile, I was watching everything, documenting his social media posts, tracking his sales numbers based on what he publicly shared, noting every interview, every marketing claim, every time he called himself the inventor. My attorney and I had everything ready. The prior art package was complete. The lawsuit was drafted. We were just waiting for the right moment, the moment when Jake was most committed, most invested, most convinced he'd won. That's when I struck. My attorney filed a legal challenge to Jake's patent based on prior art. We submitted my entire documentation package. All the notebooks, photos, videos, prototypes, time-stamped files, material receipts, everything. Clear evidence that I'd invented the entire system at least 8 months before Jake claimed to have even started. We included expert testimony from a mechanical engineer who reviewed both my documentation and Jake's patent application and confirmed they were identical. But we didn't just file the prior art challenge. We also filed a lawsuit against Jake's business for intellectual property theft and fraud, because Jake had sworn in legal documents that he was the original inventor. That's fraud. We filed in federal court because patent law is federal jurisdiction. The filing fee alone was $400, but it was worth every penny. The lawsuit detailed everything. The timeline of my invention, the evidence of Jake visiting my garage and seeing the prototypes. His patent application filed 2 weeks after his visit. The identical nature of the designs. His false statements in the patent documents claiming he was the original inventor. His use of my stolen IP to secure a business loan. All of it laid out in 47 pages of legal documentation. Jake got served with the lawsuit papers at his warehouse. The process server showed up while he was there with his 2 employees, handed him the envelope, and left. Jake called me within 20 minutes. I was at work, saw his name pop up on my phone, let it ring twice before answering. What the hell are you doing? You're suing me? I kept my voice calm. Didn't raise it, didn't get emotional. Yeah, you stole my design and patented it. I have documentation proving I invented everything at least 8 months before you even knew it existed. You committed fraud when you claimed to be the original inventor in your patent application. You can't do this! You'll ruin everything I've built. You built it with my stolen intellectual property, so yeah, that's kind of the point. He started bargaining, voice getting desperate. We can work this out. I'll give you a percentage of the business. We can be partners. 50-50 split. I'll pay you royalties, whatever you want. Not interested. You stole from me, lied about it, and our parents backed you up without question. Now you deal with the consequences. This is going to destroy me financially. I've put everything into this. The loan, my savings, everything. Sounds like a you problem, Jake. He hung up. I could hear him starting to panic in those last few seconds before the line went dead. About 45 minutes later, my dad called. He'd clearly been talking to Jake, getting his side of the story first. What the hell do you think you're doing suing your own brother? Protecting my intellectual property that he stole? This is jealousy, pure and simple. You can't stand that Jake is finally succeeding at something. Dad, I have 8 months of documented proof that I invented this entire system before Jake even knew about it. 3 notebooks full of dated entries, 30 prototypes with timestamps, hundreds of photos and videos, material receipts that correlate with specific design iterations, expert testimony. Jake saw it all in my garage, stole it, and lied about inventing it himself. You believed him because you always believe him. We're not going to let you destroy your brother's business over some petty grudge. Drop the lawsuit or you're out of this family. I actually laughed. Couldn't help it. Dad, I've been the black sheep since birth. You gave Jake $270,000 for college while I got $15,000. You've never treated me like real family anyway. Jake's been the golden child his entire life. This just makes it official. You drop this right now or we will never speak to you again. You'll be dead to us. Then I guess I'm dead to you. See you in court. I hung up. My mom called next with the guilt trip. How could I do this to my baby brother? This would ruin Jake's life. They raised me better than this. I let her talk for 5 minutes, then said, Mom, Jake stole my invention and committed fraud. You chose to believe his lies. Deal with the consequences. I hung up on her too. The legal process took about 4 months. My attorney filed for a preliminary injunction to stop Jake from selling any more units. The judge granted it immediately because our evidence was overwhelming. Jake couldn't sell his inventory. 1,800 units sitting in a warehouse he couldn't move. Still on the hook for warehouse rent, business loan payments, no income. He tried to fight it, hired an attorney with money he didn't have, tried to argue he'd independently invented the system. But our evidence was ironclad. His attorney took one look and told Jake he had no case. Recommended he settle. Jake's patent got revoked. The patent office agreed I had clear prior art. Without the patent, his business had no legal protection, no competitive advantage, nothing. The lawsuit wasn't just about invalidating his patent. It was about damages. My attorney argued Jake had profited from my stolen intellectual property and committed fraud in the patent application. Jake's business was worthless. He couldn't sell inventory because of the injunction, couldn't pay the business loan, couldn't afford to keep fighting. He tried to declare bankruptcy for the business. But because of the fraud claims, my attorney argued the debt shouldn't be dischargeable. Jake was personally liable for everything. About 6 months in, Jake was completely destroyed financially. Business loan in default. Savings drained fighting the lawsuit. Borrowed money from our parents he couldn't pay back. 1,800 units of inventory he legally couldn't sell and couldn't afford to store. That's when my attorney reached out with a settlement offer. I would drop the fraud claims and damages lawsuit on one condition. Jake had to sell me all his inventory, all business assets, the domain name, everything, for exactly $1,000. $1,000 for about $75,000 worth of manufactured inventory and business assets. Jake's attorney advised him to take it. Only way out. If the lawsuit continued, he'd end up owing me potentially hundreds of thousands with no way to pay. Jake agreed. He had no choice. I paid him $1,000 and became the owner of 1,800 units of the router bit system I'd invented in the first place, plus all business assets. The inventory Jake had spent his life savings, a business loan, and our parents' money to manufacture was now mine for less than the cost of a used laptop. I launched the product properly, used Jake's existing website, updated it with my name as the actual inventor. I had the documentation to prove it, so no legal issues. The product actually did well. Turns out my design was genuinely good. Sold through most of the inventory over the next year through online sales and a deal with a tool distributor. Made back the $1,000 plus about $40,000 in profit after expenses. Jake was destroyed. About $60,000 in debt between the defaulted business loan, money he owed our parents, and legal fees. Had to move back in with our parents. Got a regular job to try digging himself out. Our parents tried to blame me. Sent emails about how I destroyed my brother's dreams. How I was cruel and vindictive. How they were ashamed of me. I sent one email back. Jake stole my invention. I have 8 months of documentation proving it. You chose to believe his lies. These are the consequences. Don't contact me again. They tried a few more times. I blocked them. Haven't spoken to any of them in about a year now. Jake sent me one message about 6 months ago. Just said, "I'm sorry. You were right. I screwed up. Too little, too late." I didn't respond. Last I heard, Jake's still working some middle management job, living in our parents' basement, paying down debts. Our parents still think I'm the villain. They've completely rewritten history to make Jake the victim. Fine by me. They can live in their delusion. I've still got about 200 units left that I'm selling through my website. Every time I ship one out, I think about how Jake thought he could steal my work and get away with it. And I've started working on a new design. Precision measuring system for cabinet installation. This time, I'm filing for the patent myself before showing it to anyone. The best part? A few months ago, one of those YouTube woodworkers who'd reviewed Jake's product reached out to me. He'd seen my website, realized I was the actual inventor, and wanted to do a follow-up video about the real story behind the router bit system. I gave him the full story, showed him my original notebooks, the dated prototypes, explained the whole timeline. He made a video titled "The Truth Behind the Modubit Router System," where he exposed Jake's theft and fraud. That video got like 300,000 views. Jake's name is now permanently associated with being a fraud and a thief in the woodworking community. Every time someone searches for him online, that video comes up. His reputation is done. My sales actually went up after that video dropped. Turns out people like supporting the actual inventor instead of the guy who stole from his brother. Jake tried to get the video taken down, claiming defamation. The YouTuber's attorney sent him a letter pointing out that truth is an absolute defense against defamation, and they had all my documentation to prove everything in the video was accurate. Jake backed off, so now I've got a successful product I invented. Jake's bankrupt and living in his parents' basement with a ruined reputation, and our parents get to live with the fact that they backed the wrong son. Game over, little brother. If you enjoyed this video, please hit that subscribe button. It really helps the channel and help us bring you more and better stories. Thanks.